Hello, film gods, all you wonderful, lovely film crew all around the world, wherever you are. It's 2025. I mean, it felt like only yesterday we were all sitting at home waiting for the industry to come back due to COVID, and boom, it's just been an absolute blur. And I guess all you first-time listeners, wherever you are across the planet, hola, ¿qué tal? Bonjour. I don't really know many more languages to use and to say, but welcome. I'm so pleased that you're here, giving your time and attention to this passion project of mine, which is talking to the British film industry, the crew, and thrown out to the universe, soon the cast. I mean, the Gary Oldmans, the Emma Thompsons, let's do it. Let's just put it out there. I've thrown the intention out. We are going to have some phenomenal guests this year. I haven't lined up anyone, but I just know that this year is going to be a phenomenal year for this podcast. For everyone that's coming back, for all you people that have been listening since 2020, I love you so much for giving me the time and energy that you're doing, and all the replies on the Instagrams and the likings and the shares and the downloads. All of that stuff helps the podcast, and if it helps it get out to someone that needs to hear this or would love to hear it, then I really do appreciate everything that you're doing. I guess today's episode again is with another young, hungry, up and coming / already here director. He hasn't been doing it for 20 years, and at the tail end of his career, he's in it. He's in the middle of it, and I quite liked what he does in and around AI, because that is the one thing that everyone seems to be talking about and scared of, and AI is going to come in and take over this, that, and the other. And I think the one word that I think that you'll take away is process. Is respecting that process, is what we do, how it can help us. But the process of filmmaking is, and always should be, humans telling stories to other humans. So you're going to have such an amazing episode listening. You're going to have such an amazing time listening to the episode. And I'm really pleased he said yes. And I guess that process that he talks about, there was an interesting phrase that I heard. I think it's a Buddhist phrase, and it's kind of how you do something is how you do everything. So if you're always going to cut corners, then you're always going to cut corners. But if you're always going to look into what you do and give it your all and try your best, then I think everyone that has that attitude will make it this year. Now, I know last year there was the hashtag survive to 25. Well, we're here, and now let's change that hashtag to thrive in 25. Let's make it the best year. And I'm bullish this year. I'm bullish about the film industry. I'm bullish that we're going to start making some amazing content and amazing films and amazing pieces of art that human beings can interact with and connect with emotionally, energetically, all of that. So thank you so much. Let's make this 2025 an amazing year. And I look forward to hearing your stories on the socials, and let's be there for each other. Let's just reach out. If you know that's someone that's going through something, just reach out to them, because we're all in this together. All right? Reach out. Big love. Be safe. Enjoy the episode.
Ladies and gentlemen.
So, Film God Familia, we have got another legend in the game who I've had the privilege and honor to work with. And we were saying just before we kind of hit the record button that one of the things that I love about what our guest does is there is a very clear intention as to what the project needs and ideally looks like. And the previs are so on point. It gives everyone on the set a really clear understanding of what he wants. And I think with the technological advances that we're going through and we're going to be coming, and that are going to be coming, I think our guest's attitude towards what he does, how he does it, and his ability and his acceptance of change, I think is going to stand him in such great stead to just absolutely dominate over the next kind of 10, 20 years, however long he wants to do it, until he wants to retire and put his feet up somewhere nice and warm. Um, but I thank him so much for his time today. So, without any more waffle from this guy, what is your name and what's your role on the call sheet?
Oh, mate, what an intro. I'm honored to be part of the hallowed establishment of the film gods. Yeah, my name's Rubinstein. I'm a director first and foremost, but I do a lot of visual effects stuff as well. So yeah, I'll probably describe myself as a director slash VFX artist slash general maker of things, I guess.
Oh, that's one of the great. I think one of the great things that I saw, because when we first worked together, I kind of always like to check out directors, and I went in and checked on your Instagram. There was so many just amazing techniques that you're using, um, and that may come from a passion for computers or for VFX or for anything like that. But what's that? What was that first moment that you kind of went, I really love. I want to be a film director. I want to be a visual effects, or I want to get into film. What was that first moment? Was it super young? Were you like one of those classic 5-year-old directors shooting, 8 mil and stop frame, or when was that first little joining of the dot?
I guess, I mean, like my path has been very meandering to get to where I'm at now. I think I've always been like deeply fascinated with all of the creative process. Like started off doing a lot of sketching, a lot of drawing as a child, a lot of Lego, avid Lego builder, making stuff, building photography, slowly picked up cameras and stuff. But I think the moment where I was like, okay, yeah, this is something I could do. This is what I want to do, or this is what I really enjoy doing. Um, it was at uni. I was studying engineering, so obviously you can see the kind of building, making stuff part of my brain was very active then. But I didn't really like it. It wasn't really for me. I didn't enjoy what I was being asked to do. There was too much maths. And I had a camera. I had like a DSLR camera, so I got really into sort of filming all of the kind of university events and societies and like parties and balls and there was just a lot of stuff going on and a lot of people kind of needed little promo videos, which actually now looking back on it was pretty much just like advertising. I would make sort of 30-second promos for some event, or I would sort of make some silly little kind of sketch or something. And you get your friends to be in it, or you'd come up with some silly idea and everyone would come along and it would be awful, but but it was good practice. It was really good fun. And I did that sort of all of my kind of third year at uni. Um,
Were you
and
part of like the film?
the
Did
thing
you
is that there
change
wasn't.
degrees, or did you get your engineering, and that was just a little side hustle?
It was basically just a side hustle, but there wasn't really anyone else doing it. I went to a really academic uni, so it was very focused. There wasn't really much creative stuff going on at all. So I had quite a nice little niche, being the guy that sort of did that kind of stuff. And the big one for me was doing the university ski trip. So that was like I didn't really know what I was doing, but I said, "Oh yeah, I'll be the media guy. I'll be the media secretary for that." And they were like, "Okay, cool, right. So you've got to do the promo film and you've got to do the kind of wrap up video on the trip." And we had a bit of money for that, so I sort of found some people online and built a little crew, and we went out to France and we filmed this like really elaborate kind of ski movie. And this was in like 2015 as well. So back when kind of you put a 3-4 minute video on YouTube and people would actually watch all of it, which was great. And we had this storyline where a guy missed the bus to go on the ski trip, and then he had to run to France instead. And we filmed him like running through London, and then we got to Brighton and stuck him in the channel, and then filmed him like washing up on a French beach. And he was basically doing this like elaborate journey to get to the ski resort where all the whole uni ski trip was going on. And yeah, I just loved it. I loved it so much. It was my favorite thing. I took like a week off uni to do that, which was also pretty unheard of. And everyone
Wow.
was, "What are you doing? This is such a waste of your time. Like you're going to really struggle with your exams." And I'm like, "Yeah, but this is what I want to do. This is so much more fun. I'm having like the time of my life doing this." Yeah. So then when I finished uni, I realized definitely not engineering. That wasn't the thing for me. So I got a job at Red Bull, which was quite similar, to be honest, doing little kind of promo films, very hands-on, lots of cool travels, lots of adventures.
Did they
I mean,
see the film that you'd made, and was that your like one piece, or did you have like a
I had
whole
a few
show
little
reel?
bits. Yeah, the ski trip stuff was good because we had like a little bit of budget, and the event, because the uni ski trip had 3,000 people going on it, so it was a really big
Oh wow.
spectacular thing. So we had quite big headliners at the sort of final night events and stuff. So it was quite high production value, like the kind of the content we were able to capture, even though I only had like a couple of grand to do it. We had nice cameras and there's lots of people dancing and fireworks and all that kind of stuff. So it looked pretty premium. So I was kind of lucky to have like quite a good show reel, I guess. Even
Mm.
having only like messed around with filmmaking and sort of making little promo videos for about a year, I was quite lucky to sort of end up with quite a good show reel of stuff.
So
Um,
were you shooting all of this stuff yourself, or did you
yeah,
know, and you're editing? So you're basically a one man band learning just through experience and doing.
yeah, school of YouTube, everything. Just
Boom.
tuck into YouTube tutorial. Right, let's go. I mean, I made some shocking stuff as well, like some really awful
As you
stuff.
should.
I quite
Yeah,
enjoy,
yeah.
you go back and you watch something you've done. And I remember at the time thinking, this is great, this is brilliant. And then I watched that, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I ever even could sit to the end of that. That's atrocious. But yeah, so for me it was basically just getting stuck into the events and stuff at uni and finding a little kind of niche of being the guy that would film stuff and the guy that would make little promo vids. Like for example, there was a surf trip and we did one where we like sellotaped a skateboard onto a surfboard and had somebody like surfing through the town center and yeah, just came out with all these kind of like silly, fun video ideas and just bashed them out basically. And that was my start, yeah. And then that got me the job at Red Bull, and then from Red Bull, it was kind of just onwards and upwards, really.
What
More,
does working at a place? Because I look at, you look at Red Bull as a company, you go, they sell a tiny little drink that doesn't really smell that nice. That's probably full of, stuff but none of their advertising and none of their, marketing is, hi, person with the can, close up Coke. Go, 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 go. It's like, let's try and make some of the gnarliest, craziest, most insane, like the dude when he went up and he was in the stratosphere and he jumped out. You kind of go, what's that got to do about Red Bull? But it's like actually they're not trying to sell you a drink. They're trying to sell an experience. They're trying to sell a feeling. They're selling a crazy little moment in time. So did that, just being thrown into that kind of environment? Were you making stuff? Were you how did you grow then at a company like that?
yeah, I loved it. I mean, yeah, the space jump thing. I used to grow up watching, love those YouTube videos, all the Danny McCaskill stuff, all the big sort of imaginative set builds. And although you say like they're not sticking a can in your face and getting you to drink it, like there is always a boss shot in there. There's always somebody like, sicking on the can. It always
Yeah.
happens in every single Red Bull film. And we used to be really kind of we used to be very like kind of serious about how we would include the can and like really take it seriously. It would never be like a kind of like, wait a minute, pause. Okay, let's go again. It would always be
Yeah,
like
yeah.
sort of subtle integration, like really natural. And there would be this whole like committee of like old producers who would sort of assess the quality of your boss shot. We'd call it that, the boss shot. And you had to make sure you had a really like natural kind of like dignified bosh every kind of film that you made. But no, it was wicked. I mean, yeah, I was so lucky to sort of just like land on my feet in that environment and be kind of given a camera, given all these kind of great sport events and sort of athlete things that were going on. And I would just sort of go out there and shoot stuff and work with really experienced crews and be sent all around the world to do silly stuff. Um,
Wow.
so that was sick. And I
It
still
must be
do.
easier to film amazing, bike flips and sports stuff. That it feels like it's easier to make great content when the person that you're filming is amazing at what they do and what they're doing is phenomenal. It feels like a bit of a cheat code. It's
Yeah,
like
right. You
let's
just
just
press record, don't you?
yeah.
I mean, that's the same across, on the projects we work on now. Secret to making a great film is just cast great people and
Mm.
get great cinematographer and get great VFX people in. Like it is such a team sport. And the director's job is to be captain of that team, but ultimately your success hinges on the people that you work with very much more than your ability, I would say.
Are you
Um,
able to wear those hats? Because I guess as a self shooter where you started and if in Red Bull they would go out and you do AP stuff and shoot your own stuff, having to kind of relinquish control on the bigger jobs, do you learn to do that, or is that something that you just have to accept?
I think sort of my whole journey so far has been about stepping further and further and further away from the camera, probably.
Hmm.
So, I started off doing it all myself, doing all the editing, uh, and the snowball started to get bigger, and you'd end up with bigger projects where you'd have to get in other people who would also help. And, sometimes other people would take on the edit and other people would plug in and do the VFX. And, my job now is basically completely removed from all of that. But having been through that process, like I do think that helps me massively. That I really hopefully do know what I'm talking about when it comes to the edit and when it comes to the visual effects stuff and a little bit when it comes to the cinematography. I mean, now I get to work with cinematographers who are far better than I ever was. Um, but for me, that is the route into becoming a director. I don't really see, unless your journey is about strictly narrative and your job is sort of storytelling and scripts and all that kind of stuff. But if it's visual and it's about using a camera and doing editing and doing effects and stuff, which a lot of commercial work actually is, more so I think than sort of narrative work. Surely you've got to be hands-on. Surely you've got to come from this kind of like having done it yourself background for the crew to respect you. That's the way that
Mm. Yeah, well, I guess there's there's been so many changes that maybe a generation of directors that didn't have to get involved with visual effects, didn't have the need or want to do it, um, could just keep it at arm's length. But it feels like you kind of grabbed both hands to kind of try. I can picture you sitting in. I think there was like one of your YouTubers like it felt like you were taking a camera apart, taking a drone apart to see how it would work and put it back in. It's like that engineering that the Lego and the film degree, the engineering degree, you kind of knowing how something pieces together, knowing how an edit pieces together allowed you to then understand it. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm sure that's definitely like my brain is obviously very different in the way that it approaches these things. Like I'm sort of obsessed with the process and I love knowing how it works, like from the very beginning to the end. Like I'm not super comfortable doing something that I'm not completely like in control of, I guess. And that probably leads me to sort of getting really deep into all of these different aspects of the filmmaking production process, whereas maybe other people are more comfortable completely handing that off and letting somebody else just look after it. So there's pros and cons of both, aren't there?
Well, I like it. I think where we're going, especially in advertising, where the landscape has changed. I think, the way that people consume content is in shorter doses. As you said, people used to watch a 3 minute YouTube, 3 to 5 minute YouTube video. They used to watch a 90-second advert, 45, maybe a 30-second advert. And now it kind of feels like we're into, cut downs of tens and this kind of stuff. So I think the visual effects, the ability to be creative in less and less time, what you film and how you put it out there needs to be more creative and thoughtful and more special. So the job that we did with the Brit Awards a few years back, there was an easy way of doing it, which was, maybe the students just stand in front of their work and do the thing. It seems like your thirst for wanting to push the boundaries and go further then meant that you kind of did this really beautiful previs of like it was like a camera going through the school and swooping past them and all the rest of it. That ability to be creative. How do that say for that brief? How did they come to you? What did they say? And where do you then end up with what you ended up with?
I mean, that job was a really lovely brief. It's one of those briefs that you just think, yeah, okay, this is going to be sick. I'm so excited about that. I guess for context for everybody who hasn't seen it, the job was about showing off students from the Brit School who had created pieces of art, pieces of work, pieces of music, pieces of dance, and then we were using them for the idents in the Brit Awards like TV broadcast. So we needed like four 15-second pieces, but then the idea was to connect them all together as well. So we came up with this idea of doing the drone flying through the Brit School and then sort of encountering all the students like performing their work or creating their art as the camera sort of traveled past them. But it was great because we had this like starting point, which was a piece of art. So one of them was a dress, for example, and then our job was to enhance it and to bring it to life. So we sort of created the dress in 3D and then had it kind of knitting together and all of the seams and stuff like kind of being stitched by butterflies and lovely moments like that. And we had another dance performance element and we put like I think it was like fluorescent tape on the students and then we shone UV light on them and then we used that to create like a kind of light painting so their movements sort of traced the paths in 3D space and there weren't really any rules with that job. It was basically just like here's a thing and then just make it look as cool as you possibly can. And by the way, you're going to have like a great crew of awesome people and 3 days to do it, which is just the dream, really, isn't it? Like
Mm.
getting so many cool people together, all the different people in the crew, all the different departments. pulling in their A game and making something wicked. So to that one in particular was kind of just like how far can we push it, right? That was there wasn't really anything like reining it in. It was take a dance, take a song, take some movement. Here's a CG team, make something cool, basically. So I love that. But yeah, my job, like as a director, obviously, is to sort of communicate that vision and get everybody aligned on the page. And the previs for that was a big part of that because it was quite conceptual. And we also needed to prove that it was going to work in the TV format. So it needed to sort of look good in these kind of like 15-second chunks as well. So we worked really hard on doing the previs and like plotting out the camera move. And we did some like 3D scans of the school. So we were able to plot exactly what we were going to do with the camera before we even got there. And that just meant like when you get there on the day, you know exactly what the shot is that you're trying to get. No nonsense. You're just doing that one shot and nailing it. Just makes things a lot more efficient, I reckon.
And I guess it also takes a little bit of maybe pressure off you from a client perspective because they've kind of seen it. They're not. It's not so. Um, some people aren't visual; they can't see it in their head. That you could describe it to them to the ends of the earth, but if they can't see what you're saying, it's going to be difficult. And I mean, even for the short film that I want to touch base on, that I think it's gone to loads of awards and all these beautiful and won so many of these things and just a fantastic, fantastic film that we'll touch base on. But even for that, the idea of visualizing it and giving people something that they can see to then make their own has got to, it kind of feels like it gets what's in your head onto the screen and just takes the pressure off everyone kind of going, well, I don't know what he's talking about. How matter well you can describe it, seeing it for some people is going to be so much better. And I don't know what my question is for that because I just think I've been on so many jobs where a previs would really be helpful just for everyone, art department, art, camera, costume, makeup, everyone. Is that something that you just instinctively had to do for that, or do you like to just do it for yourself as well?
I mean, I'm always blown away by how much I hear about people just winging it. Because I feel like the way that my brain, obviously, this is me coming back from like my engineering background and being a proper nerd and being like liking to have control over the process and being very deeply involved in all of it. I obviously wouldn't dare step onto a set that I know there's going to be a lot of CGI involved in without having a really clear idea of what we need to do and what we need to get. But somehow a lot of people do just turn up, it sounds like, and they just sort of shoot some stuff and they assemble it in the edit and they're like, okay, yeah, maybe this will be cool, maybe we'll try that, and it usually looks really good. So I'm kind of like I don't really understand how that works, but it seems to work. But for me, yeah, I'm super visual. I spend a lot of time imagining things and thinking about things, and I'm quite lucky that I can sort of sketch things and doodle things as well. And I also work in 3D software, so when we're communicating an idea, like the first thing that I do is just plot it out. I put it out there in front of people. um which is probably like a blessing and a curse in that, yeah, you can communicate the idea and things can be nice and smooth on set, but sometimes you do then eliminate the kind of random chance and the random sort of beauty and the things that you weren't expecting, and then that noise in the system that sometimes actually leads to the best results, maybe if you are too strict and you do have everything sort of too kind of calculated before. So there probably is, I could probably learn quite a bit from people who wing it. I'd love to be on set with someone who's just like the exact opposite of me, who's like pure kind of creative, wacky, visionary. And it would just be interesting to see how they operate. I could probably learn a bit.
Well, I mean, you do the trust or the ability to just let it happen around you. Sorry, not you, but as in that person that isn't as focused and as planned. Like from an AD's perspective, going onto a set where people know what they're doing, we have a very clear visual, we have a very clear journey, we've got a place to aim for, can be really, really useful, like really, really useful. Um, but as you said, that kind of sometimes there's that magic, and I think it was one of the past steps speaking to a DOP, John Matheson, and he's like one of the opening shots in Gladiator where there's this Robin. It wasn't boarded. They were just out. They were filming, and on that day, this Robin just landed. So he quickly just said B unit, quick, grabbed that, and they kind of grabbed it, and did a thing, and bosh, and
And it
it
goes.
becomes, and there you go, and it's like, yes, you can. I think sometimes the magic of the location and what's happening can't be too prescribed. But when we do things that do have such CG visuals. So like say the short that we did, um, you have to know where you're going. You have to know your beats because there was a time it was like a rhythm. It felt like a music video to more than just a short film. And I'd like to touch base on that because it's done really well. You know, it came out, I think, shot it last year. It came out, it seemed like it came out kind of summertime-ish. And I just want to kind of talk through that journey because I think a lot of directors that have a short in their head or have a vision for something that they want to film and never do it because they don't think that it will go anywhere and it's just a showreel piece. But I kind of I think that the topic that you chose was a beautiful topic, one that isn't spoken enough, but being spoken about more. And there was no real, it didn't feel like there was an end market for it, but it'd be nice to just touch base on why you made it, how it happened, and then just kind of tell us the journey of the release and what's happened since then.
Yeah, my pleasure. I mean, this has been, yeah, like I think with every short film project there's just a Goliath effort to get something from like an idea into a finished form. And when we work in commercials, we just forget how easy it is to do something when there's money, when there's a brand paying for it, and there's a schedule and a release date. And when you take all of those things out of the equation and you've just got an idea that you want to make, it just it's so daunting and it's such a challenge to actually bring it to life. So thanks well, first of all, thank you for being part of it and sort of lending your time and
Pleasure.
expertise to making it happen. But yeah, we're really happy with the way it's gone down. The project is called Cry Like a Guy. It's about crying, tears, crying, and why we cry. So it's quite a sort of biological slash sociological slash historical kind of like expose look at tears. But we did it through the kind of the format of a sort of gangster hard man kind of lecture. And we've got our lead character is a wonderful actor called Kieran Bew, who plays Hard Hugh in Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon. So real sort of tough guy on screen character. And he gives you this kind of lecture about crying and why it's good for you. And obviously our target market is sort of, men tapping into the conversation around men's well-being and mental health and everything that's going on at the moment. It was written by my girlfriend, by my partner, who writes brilliant spoken word poetry. We've done a bunch of projects together. And this is something that she wrote, like basically just for a laugh about 2 or 3 years ago. And we always thought, okay, yeah, this would be cool to turn it into a film. And the original thing that she wrote was about 7 or 8 minutes long. And, we hacked away at it and we chiseled it down into this really punchy kind of 4 minute thing. And then I had it, I kept sort of bringing it up in conversation with people and I'd be like, hey, I've got this cool film project that I want to do. Does anyone want to make a film about crying? It'd be really cool. And everyone was like, oh yeah, that does sound cool. Yeah. But basically, I did that for about 18 months and no one really wanted to like actually get involved with it. And then we were quite lucky. I did a job for, I'm just going to say it, actually, I usually keep the secret, but the money came from a bank. And they don't necessarily
Good
know.
place. They normally
Yeah,
have
they got
lots of
money. Yeah,
money.
they,
Yeah,
they don't necessarily know they paid for it because they had a job that was quite sort of flush with cash, I would say. And we were able to deliver that job and do a really good job, tick all the boxes, but manage to kind of keep a certain amount on the side that we were
yeah.
able to cut the short. So I quite like that kind of like Robin Hoodiness of it, that it was for a big old bank and they've ended up paying for this thing, which is quite sort of progressive and hopefully for the public good. Anyway, yeah, so the money came, and then suddenly, like all systems would go, we actually were able to make this thing because we had the script, we had all the ideas. I'd spent ages and ages working on the previs, actually, like we were just talking about, because the one thing I was able to do on this project was sort of plan it out by myself. I didn't need any money or anything to do that, so I had this like
Mm.
really functional previs with little 3D animations in it, and I'd done lots of kind of AI stuff in there as well to sort of visualize what it was going to be. And then that meant when we got our actor cast and when we got a location and we got everything in place, we were sort of much more efficient with using the 2 days that we had because we kind of knew pretty much what shots we needed to get already. Like we weren't doing loads of extra coverage. There were some places where we basically only got one angle of it. And I just like had to use the shot that we got, which is pretty daunting and scary. But again, we were trying to cover 4 minutes of like quite sort of technical, good looking cinematography in 2 hectic days. And there's lots of big set pieces that move around and everything. And yeah, it was definitely ambitious to pull off in the 2 days that we had. But I think because I'd done the previs and I knew sort of exactly what we needed to get, it ended up working out all right.
Mm.
But
And
yeah. Oh,
and that ability to to sit down and to flesh your ideas out, and you kind of mentioned the two letters that the last episode, the AI elements of what we're doing and where we're going. How did you choose to use it as a tool for the previs? And did you then use anything from the previs or from the AI experience in the final edit as well?
There's loads and loads of AI in the final film. And in fact, if anyone's interested, I have got a YouTube video where I go into loads of detail and I talk about all the AI stuff that goes on in that. Like for me, I always want to use AI in a way that nobody knows it's AI. Like I don't want someone to watch it and be like, oh, AI. I think you've completely missed the point if that's what you do.
Mm,
So the places that I've kind of like sprinkled in the AI dust would be in sort of things that either I wouldn't have been able to achieve without AI, or things that would have been just like far too costly, too difficult, too complicated to do. But a lot of the time it's about sort of plugging it into my workflow and using it like a sort of like a team of concept artists, particularly when it comes to like image generation. I can bash out iteration after iteration after iteration and just keep going and tweaking and refining and get to like a JPEG or a PNG that I can then use for something else. And that's what we've done a lot of in the crying film. Like there's a whole pop-up book that I built, and all the kind of characters and all of the elements from that pop-up book were generated with AI. But
mm,
they're animated traditionally, so they have that kind of like intention and that kind of charm to them. And again, I think if you looked at that, you wouldn't necessarily know or care that the AI was heavily involved in that scene.
mm,
And there's loads of other bits as well. So loads of like kind of set extension stuff, loads of the details, loads of the production design elements like posters and things like that. You can design with AI and then print them out. So it's just about sort of speeding up the kind of the processes that maybe take a while, that would be quite fiddly. That's kind of my interest in AI at the moment. It's less about full screen going straight from prompt to final pixel. It's much more about like how do we plug it into the fun stuff, which is the kind of the bit in the middle. That's where I live. That's the process, right? It's not about
mm.
here that quickly. It's about where does the craft happen in the middle.
Nice.
Um,
And have you found that it's changing your workflow, or is it, as you said, is it just an extension that is helping you in that pre-prod?
Definitely not just in pre-prod. I think like in the visual effects process, definitely there are so many things that you can do and that you can speed up using AI tools. I think that the AI tools are being developed at like lightning pace. Like I can't even stay on top of what's happening. I will discover a tool and I'm like, oh yeah, that's quite cool. I could probably use that for this purpose. And then maybe you have a go and you try it. Uh, then the next week you come back to it and there's something else that you could use. So I think that what am I trying to say here? So for me, like, well, okay, my general point about AI is that I think that like to use my sort of simple analogy of like idea and finished product, the bit in the middle is where we thrive. That's what we do. We exist in the process, and we have mastered to a certain extent the processes that we've come to use and come to rely on. We, as someone who uses like certain Adobe software, I'm like very fluent in knowing where to click and like how to sort of go from this idea to this thing by using the software that I know. And I think creative people, are able to take new inputs into their kind of like process factory thing in the middle, and they're able to kind of work with the existing tools that they've got to create new and exciting outputs. And I think for me, that's where like the real opportunity and the real potential is about sort of people who've got skills in lots of different ways and lots of different formats, and taking in these new kind of ingredients into their proverbial soup, and spitting out kind of new and exciting things. I'm not that interested in people who are going to go straight from like kind of prompt to finish thing, prompt to finish thing,
Mm,
prompt to finish thing, because where's the process? Like where's the sort of the magic if you're just kind of like outsourcing all of that to the random chance and the random noise or the training of this AI model? But I would sort of cautiously say that I think the audience is in the same mindset. I think that the audience can appreciate craft and they can appreciate process, and they
mm,
don't really care what tools are used as long as they know that like there's intention behind it and someone has kind of actively chosen this, and that there's been iteration and there's been kind of like development along the way. I think when you do go straight from like kind of prompt to finished thing, by just bashing it into a video generator, I think the audience can feel the sort of hollowness of that. And that's probably just due to the sort of fidelity of the video generator stuff that we've got at the moment, and it'll probably get better. But yeah, I think the solution to sort of working with AI is to build processes and build kind of systems that still require like kind of human skill and human craft, and that we can master, and that, some people can be better than other people at. I think that's a kind of big part of creativity as well. Like, you want to go to the
Mm.
person who's really good at doing that thing, and he's been working with that tool for ages and who's mastered that process, rather than all of us sort of being on this same playing field where we just sort of bash out what we want to see into a prompt generator and hit go, and it just spits out something, and you say, oh yeah, look at mine, it's great. But anyone could have done that.
I like that, keeping the meat of the sandwich, the process,
Process is
as the
yeah.
as the holy grail, as the sacred element that one makes us human, two makes the creative output, gives it a soul, but three, it also allows us the chance to experience and learn. That's the whole point. If if I was to make it, not being a director, but if I just, as you said, wrote in a half a page essay of what I want a film to be, hit enter, and then the film came out the other end, what have I learned? What have I learned about filmmaking? What have I learned about lighting and sound and cameras and human acting? What have and what have I? There's nothing. There's nothing there that I've actually learned and added to my skill set and grown as a filmmaker. And I like that. I like keeping the process, as Toby, the last episode, kind of said, it's like, you're adding, it's a tool, it's a hammer, it's something that you're using, but it doesn't become the film itself, which is nice. But the film, like the Cry Like a Guy, beautiful, amazing, some phenomenal acting, just delivered so well. I just remember there's a couple of points whilst he was um preparing to deliver the next batch of the scene that we were filming, and you just had to kind of step away for a couple of minutes, let him get in the right headspace to then be able to deliver what the line and the intention. And it's beautiful when you see actors that really understand and connect to the script that they're and the words that they're saying. And it kind of came out, and it's a beautiful, wonderful film that I recommend everyone go and see, and I'll put it in the links. Um, but then you had your little baby that had taken like 18 months of no one wanting to do it. Um, Once it was there in your arms, and for anyone watching on YouTube, I'm cuddling this little baby of a film.
MP4, little
Yeah,
baby.
yeah, there you go, MP4 baby. You then sent it out to the film festivals, and it seemed to be well received. So how did all of that go down, and what was that process like?
Wow, yeah. Okay. So obviously big journey to go from nothing to actually having a finished film. A lot of graft, a lot of clicking, a lot of solitary clicking from me, basically just sat there picking away. Um
Render,
uh
render.
yeah, oh man, so many renders. Also quite like daunting to do it without having a client to approve as well. Because you get
Mm,
something and you're like, is this the finished thing? Have I finished it? Like, am I happy with it? I'm not really used to that. I'm used to
yeah.
somebody else telling me whether it's finished or not. But yeah, so we did a little premiere event, which was really cool. We had a bunch of crew and cast, and everyone came together and we watched it on a big screen. Which I would also just recommend if anyone makes anything, even if it's just like a little music video, just get your mates together and watch it from start to finish. Because I guarantee, if you send something to people, even if it's like really short, they probably won't watch all the way to the end. They probably
Mm,
won't good sound, and they probably won't like actually engage with it. So yeah, premiere event, really fun, and that was one of the highlights of my year last year. Just being in a room with 50 mates slash people I've worked with, and just showing them a piece of work that I'm really proud of, and talking a bit about the process, and really feeling like, there's a community of people who love this just as much as I do, and who can sort of believe in this.
mm,
And then yeah, then we had all the festivals and awards. So I would say that festivals are can be quite demoralizing, I think, because I've
mhm.
entered, if you go on the film's Vimeo, you'll see all these laurels all over it, but that's only like half of the ones that I've entered, right? Half of the times I'm getting rejected. I'm paying money to these people to watch my film, and then they say, "Oh no, sorry, it's not good enough." And you're like, "For real?
Oh
Come on,
wow.
I've just given you 20 quid
Yeah,
and
yeah.
hasn't got selected. Like, how dare you?" And there's so many other things, of course, because there's so many other people making amazing films, and also like it
Mm,
has to fit into their kind of curation as well. So like if they're running a film,
mm,
they need to have like a specific slot in the program of like three or four films that are kind of similar themes. So that's another big part of it. But I have realized, I think that the festivals don't really mean that much, I would say. I think that the majority of people who go and watch these film festivals are the people who've made the films in the audience. Like, I don't think there's many members of the public who are just popping into the sort of local film festival to sort of check out what's happening. And I don't think it necessarily will be the kind of big springboard for your career. Like for me, the pleasure is in the fact that we've done it and that we've made it, and you know, those
Mm.
are memories that I'm going to have forever, and the time that we had on set, and you know, all the fun and all the learnings and everything, that whole journey. Like again, the magic is in the process, in the middle. It's the finished product is over there, but I live in the process and the doing and the making, and that's what makes me happy. So really rewarding, and obviously, like given the subject matter as well, like there's been some really like lovely messages that I've received from just complete strangers on the internet. There was a woman I spoke to the other day who said that she showed it to her son, who's in his teens, and you know is sort of doesn't really know how to deal with crying and the idea of crying, and like particularly the idea of manliness as well. Like, what is manliness for a teenager these days when you've got like crazy right-wing lunatics on one side, and, and like it's just
Yeah,
tricky to
yeah,
sort of
yeah.
sit. So I think anything that can contribute to that conversation like is super positive for everybody. So there's been a bunch of like random success stories from just, you know, random people who've been really like engaged with the subject. So that's cool. And then the other thing,
Also, I mean, look, and I'm just going to jump in. I think from a process perspective, I think what I would be taken away from this as a young director or anyone that wants to make something happen is that you've made it happen for yourself. That's the beauty of this, is that you had an idea, you had the commitment and the courage and the consistency to keep at it and talking to people for 18 months for then it to be financially secured through another way that wasn't someone going, here's money for a script. I think that's the beauty of part of this story is that, and look, it may not, you know, win an Oscar, may not win a BAFTA, but the the film will do more for, as you said, a topic that doesn't have a platform to stand on and that can help teenage boys understand the whole history of crying and tears and manliness. And it's okay. It is okay to shed tears. It's a biological response. You don't have to feel any way less of a man because you are showing emotions. And I think that was part of the reason that I wanted to be part of it, is because it's such a beautiful topic. I've got a young boy. I've got a son. He's 8 years old. He's going to be coming into this in the next few years, and actually having now, I can just go, here you go. Here's a video. I can tell you about it, but actually, they engage through learning through videos as well. And actually, it's not dad telling me that crying's all right. It's actually, well, look, here you go. The Greeks did it, and it was the Victorians that kind of fucked us. So let's just, it's okay. It's all okay.
there we
So
go.
thank you.
That's it. That's your message. There you go.
Yeah,
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 yeah. It's also just like, yeah, it was really fun. It was a really fun process. I couldn't recommend it anymore. It's reignited my love for like this as a job, and you know, you get through the commercials, you get through all the agency and the client nonsense, and if you get the opportunity to make something that you really care about, and there's nobody telling you what you need to do and how to do it, you can do it all by yourself. You know, every couple of years, I think I'll be happy. That'll keep me content, I reckon.
yeah. Nice.
Um,
Nice. And I stopped you. You were just about, you were in mid flow. I'm so sorry, but
oh
you were
mate, I've got
saying
no idea.
something.
I've got no idea what I was going to say, so don't worry about that. It's all good.
So kind of coming off the back of visual effects, AI, making something that is yours that you wanted to make, it kind of feels like there's this little jump back in time where you were making things for the fun of it. And there's, and I think with everyone's journey, there's a point that you kind of, you start off for the love, you start to make some money, you start doing it because it's the job, but then that ability to find the passion back. Do you find that each year as you're growing, as you're learning, that you're finding there's elements of filmmaking that you didn't know, that there's things that you're just learning and that you're excited about? What is it now that you're looking forward to in the next kind of 5 years of your career?
I think it's hard to do the kind of 5 year plan in this industry because it's
Hmm.
so fickle, isn't it? And like we really haven't got a clue what this AI thing is going to lead to, or just in general, like what does the marketing media landscape look like in 5 years? I mean, I think if you told people 5 years ago that like TV would be dying and everyone would just be watching 10-second TikTok videos, like they probably would have been like, oh Jesus, I don't even know if I want to be in this industry anymore. But that's the fun of it though, isn't it? You're rolling with the punches and you're moving with the times and you're just trying to stay on top of it. I think there's always going to be a place for like people who want to be at the forefront of creative visual media production in the sort of long-winded, gassy way of saying it. What that looks like, I have no idea, but I think I'm probably in a good place to be exploring that and probably in a good place to be sort of sharing my findings as well. So that's what I'm kind of hoping to do is just to sort of stay relevant and stay on top of it. Um, so yeah, just keeping to explore and keeping to sort of push into the new things. And that is definitely at the moment, that's dipping my toes into the AI tools and seeing what I can do with them. It's not necessarily being like the biggest kind of advocate and saying this is the best, it's going to completely change everything for the better. It's about sort of understanding the nuances and, you know, also just making good work, right? That should be the goal. And that's what tools you've used. It should be about just getting to a good final result and making cool stuff.
And features, do you like the short form? Do you like the social content creating element of life, or are you thinking long form? What's your what do you what's the passion?
Yeah, I'd definitely love to get into something longer at some point. I think that I'm in quite a nice place in commercials at the moment where I've sort of been on a good run. I think you have a really short shelf life as a commercial director. I think that I've probably got a couple more years in me, but I definitely don't want to be one of these kind of older fuddy-duddy people who've been around for a while and is still sort of milking in work they did a decade ago. And, you
Mm,
know, I'm actually so frustrated by a lot of those characters because there's so many times where I'm up against people who, you know, who might have had all the experience, but really don't necessarily know like how to deliver good bang for buck on a project. And I feel like I often, you know, the agencies will often take the safe route rather than sort of gamble on someone a bit more hungry like me. So
mm,
yeah, I think there's definitely a time to move on. I don't think I've quite hit that yet. But it would be cool to explore like longer form feature stuff at some point. And I think the process of doing Cry Like a Guy and just getting an idea from nothing to something, you know, I think it will be easier next time I do have a good idea for a short film, hopefully, because I kind of know what that process looks like. And the further along you go with your career, the more people trust you and the easier it is to get the crew in and the easier it is to just like make stuff happen. It's like the first step is always going to be the hardest on those kind of things.
the
So,
active learning. That's one thing that I think I'm taking away from this, which is the every time you talk about you do something or you put your foot into a new arena. I don't know if you know that's a phrase, but you're what you're doing, which I love, is most people would kind of get given a thing, get given a job, get given a task, kind of get through it, wing it, get to the end, move on to the next one. But you kind of, it seems like you give yourself this little buffer just at moments where you just go, what did I learn? What have I taken from that experience? And you know, with Cry Like a Guy, you kind of there'll be things that you would do different with the BAFTA, with the Brits job. There was probably things that you'd be different. And I quite like the idea of and it's for everything, you know, for all the listeners in whatever role that they do. But that moment just after a job or, you know, on the drive home from set, that kind of active learning of what could I have done better or what could go different the next time that could improve it. I really like that as a concept. Really like
yeah,
that.
man. Well, that's, do you know what? I think something that I have realized in the last year or so, and something that I'm definitely keen to pursue over the next few years as I keep developing is the education stuff.
Hmm.
Because I found that, you know, when I share the behind the scenes process of these projects on social media, people are much more interested in finding out about how we did it. You know, what were the challenges? What were the tools we used? How do we make it happen? That's the stuff that people actually engage with when you put
Hmm.
it online. They don't really care about the finished thing, especially if you work in ads, right? No one wants to see another ad. And they're also, you know, people aren't necessarily aware of what's gone on. But when you start to sort of break it down and when you explain the process, that's where the magic lives. The magic is in the process. I really, really believe in that. And that's where we all come together, all of these amazing crew people with their niche skill set to cook something wicked. So something I want to do actually is probably more education stuff. Because I find it really rewarding. I really enjoy helping people like on their journeys as well. Like, you know, you get really positive comments. People, I'm sure doing this podcast is the same for you, right?
Love it.
Yeah, people are really happy that that you're doing it and that you're sharing your insights and stuff. And for me, like I've obviously got quite a niche in the sort of visual effects kind of directing stuff that is quite difficult and hard to get into, and it's a bit of a black box. People don't really know what it's like on a high-end movie set unless they've actually been on it, which is, you know, for most people, it's not even a possibility. It's not something they'll ever necessarily get the opportunity to do, but it's super interesting to find out about. So yeah, education for me is a big part of something that I enjoy, and it's something I want to probably formalize as well. Like I'd like to start maybe a podcast, who knows, but like maybe some sort of
Boom.
education. It would probably be a YouTube thing because I think it's so visual. Like I want to do a
Yes.
sort of formalized educational thing on YouTube. Maybe chatting to other people, chatting to peers, chatting to people who are making great stuff, and just exploring how it's done and breaking it down in a way that can benefit other people. Um,
I like it. It's like the nature documentaries. Always the one of the most fun bits for me was the kind of the bit at the end where you show you the behind the scenes, and you're like, oh yeah, there must have been a person behind that camera or in that water or by that shark, or it's the kind of the behind the curtains that everyone loves to see. You see the thing in the Marvel
yeah,
movies, and it's all on green screen and the wires and the thing, and this is how they did it, and then they show you the end bit. But actually, the real bit that they shot before it all got green screen, where Spider-Man's jumping on a thing and the water comes in, that stuff people really do love to see because there's so much that they're bombarded with that they go, is this real or is it not? I don't know what's real now. So actually showing the real thing behind the thing that's not real probably is more interesting.
I mean, all I can tell you is that whenever I share behind the scenes stuff on Instagram, I will get 10 times more engagement than I do from sharing the thing itself. So people are
Mm.
just inherently so much more engaged. I think I have two theories as to what it is. And I think the first thing is that we relate to things that take a long time, like complexity. I think if you see something that is clearly very complicated and involves a lot of stuff, a lot of, people around the edges and whatever it is, somebody fanning an ostrich and somebody else like juggling corner. Like, you might not have appreciated that in the finished thing, but then suddenly you actually get shown, wow, there's all these people who've done all this complex shit. Like you appreciate that. And then the second thing I think is just like, could I do it as well? And when you see
Yeah.
people doing stuff that you can't do and you couldn't even like quantify doing, you just don't know how they've achieved that thing. I'd almost call it competency porn. I think that's something that
Okay.
really works on social media. Like when you watch someone who's really competent, and that might be just like cleaning a swimming pool or like cleaning a rug or
Yes.
drawing something. Like we really relate to competency porn. So yeah, those are my two sort of like insights for social media. Is just like show the complexity of something, and show how many people were involved in the process and how many like
I
human
love it.
hours went into it as well.
I mean, I've got my alter ego lined up now. I'm going to have an Instagram handle. I'm the ostrich fanner, and I'm just going to dress up in a safari outfit, and I'm just going to go around fanning things. You're never going to see the ostrich. It's just going to be the close up of
Yeah,
me.
yeah, but that would be the content that bangs, wouldn't
That's
it?
it. Done.
No one's gonna.
Boom.
The ostrich got to be cool, man. I mean, like,
Yeah. Love it. Well, look, it feels like we're kind of hitting that 45-ish, 50-minute point of the mark. Time point of the mark. I'm not even making sense now. But that time of the day. And I think what I've loved about this chat, because I know your time is precious and I don't want to spend, hours of your time. But what I've loved about here is I didn't know that you had started off doing an engineering degree. And there's going to be directors or people that want to get into directing that think that they needed to go and do a film degree, feel like they needed to have been making films from an early age. And I love the fact that your passion for the process, because I think we've spoken about process so much, your passion for that process is what allows you to dig deep and really kind of get into the minutiae of what it is that you're doing so that you then feel confident and comfortable that when you go on set, you are giving the maximum that you can as a director to the film crew and the people that need it. And I think that love of the process is something that we may or may not, depending on where the technology and where the industry goes now, start to chip away at. And I think that the process will start to get nibbled away by other things. And I just think that it's great to hear someone that is so dedicated and passionate about that bit in the middle, the massive bit in the middle that is the process of what
the
we
beginning and
all
the end.
do.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
That's where we live. That's what your job is, right? You exist in the
Yeah.
process. You're the
That's
process
it.
guy.
In the process of asking people to do
Yeah, but
stuff,
it gives us, we're simple creatures, aren't we? We grew up on like a savannah and we need to be sort of busy and we need to have like kind of structured goals. Like there are so many sort of simple, like kind of Buddhist ways of looking at humanity, but like
Mm.
having a kind of structured process is one of the easiest ways to remain happy and healthy. And having a kind of like open-ended sort of crazy, scary, unstructured sort of life. I don't know. That doesn't suit me. I'm sure it suits some people, but yeah, I need process. And I thrive in the process. And I love sharing the process. So yeah, I'm the process guy. Maybe that should be my little summary.
Process porn. I like it.
Process
So
porn.
we get to the end of the ep, and it's the same two questions for everyone because I really love having someone of your experience coming on and trying to find a sentence or two that just really summarizes what they've learned and being able to then give that advice to the younger self. And then the last question we'll do is a shout out to your project. So now sitting here looking back at what you've started, that younger you that's at uni that's doing that, making that film where probably I'm speaking out of turn, but maybe parents or friends or loved ones were like, I'm so proud that he's doing and becoming getting an engineering degree. This is what, he spent his A levels doing maths and physics and thingy and there was a clear lineage of where everyone thought your life was going to then suddenly find a creative output, an outlet that excited you more than the 3 or 5 years, whatever an engineering degree is. What advice have you got for that younger you that's enjoying that process, that's in the middle of filming someone jumping into Brighton water and out of France? What are you saying to that person?
I guess my sort of key takeaway would be that like none of that effort or none of those things that I was doing or that the viewer or who the listener, whatever is doing is wasted. I think that imagine like every kind of time that you do something or you have an experience or you make a project or you experience something or you go somewhere or you listen to something or you watch something, like all of those kind of like little individual blocks of experience you can use to build up your kind of like I almost picture it as like a creative temple. So, I'm building columns out of blocks, which are my experiences, which are the things that I've done and the places that I've been. And I don't really know what this temple is going to look like because it's not finished yet. I'm not using a design or a plan for it. I don't know when I'm going to get to the roof or to the ceiling, but as long as I'm sort of contributing to each of these individual columns by, placing my blocks on there, I'm going in the right direction. And I think when I was sort of younger, I was very unclear about whether I was going in the right direction because I had so many like, there's so many different opportunities. I was lucky that I could have followed the engineering path, but I decided to go the other way and do the creative thing instead. But I think, I'm confident now that none of that effort was wasted. None of those like silly little projects that I used to do were wasted energy. They were all super valuable, all blocks that I can use to sort of build my kind of eventual temple that in 20, 25 years I'll look back on and be like, oh yeah, no, that led to that, and that block built on top of that one, and that's how we got to where we are, and the eventual things that I might achieve, which is probably the whole kind of temple creation once all the blocks are in place. So that's my way of looking at it. It's again,
Yeah, I like
of
it.
course it's a process, but
Well, it's the engineering you. I kind of, some people would use different analogies, but I really like the idea of the building of the temple brick by brick with no real plan, but an understanding that the process and the journey of building that temple is more important than the finished temple. I think there was
yeah.
like a and there was a I was reading one of these kind of books that I'm engaging with at the minute, and there was these two chaps that like a philosopher went up and spoke to these two chaps that were building this building, and went up to the first one and he went, oh hi, so what are you doing? He went, oh, I'm building this wall. Went to the second one and he's building, and his attitude was, we're building this beautiful cathedral that will live on for generations. It's like that attitude of, well, what are you doing? I mean, we're all building our temples, we're all building our lives around how we do
Yeah.
things and
And,
our
and
attitudes
everybody's
to
temple
it.
has, I think also the way that maybe I should have said this, but I missed it, was that each temple, the temple is like a Greek one with lots of columns, right?
Yes.
So
No, I got it.
you got that kind of, not like a kind of, there's plenty of different types of
No, I
temples.
got it. I
Yeah,
liked it.
yeah,
No, I
yeah.
got it.
But each of your columns is like, very personal to you. So like one of my columns is probably like brand building on Instagram. So every time I do a kind of behind the scenes video, like that puts a block on my little kind of brand building column, and that column is getting higher and higher. And then I might have another column over here, which is like exploring the world. And, every time I go off and do a
Mm.
nice trip somewhere, then I'm building a brick on that column. And eventually there will be a kind of pediment that that spans across all these columns, and that would be sort of like, you know, whatever it is that I achieve eventually. But as long as you're sort of contributing to one of your columns and building something and broadening your experiences, then you are probably moving in the right direction.
Amazing. Yeah, it's 100% the rich tapestry of life. It doesn't matter whether you think it's important or not, or has a purpose or a meaning. If you're enjoying doing it, do it. Love it. Just enjoy the journey, as they always say. And I love the temple. I'm going to nick the temple.
Yeah, take
That's
the
amazing.
temple. Great
No,
attempt.
it's mine. I'm taking it. So, last question. And before we do, going to give you the film gods round of applause just to thank you for your time.
Mate, maybe it's the film
But
gods temple that's what it is. Welcome to the
that's
temple
it.
of the film gods.
Welcome to the Temple of the Film Gods. That's going to be the new artwork. So yeah, last question. It's more of an Oscars acceptance speech. If there's any one or thing or project that you want to give a shout out to, or charities or anything that you want to say thank you to, or give or highlight, this is our opportunity to give you that platform.
To be honest, I didn't prepare my Oscar speech because I definitely wasn't expecting to win. So I'd be one of the people who just gets really drunk, and it's really embarrassing when they have to go up. No. Big thank you. Well, thanks to you for doing this. I really appreciate the effort that you're going into, and you know, rounding up everybody's tales and having a good old chin wag. It's super
Thank you.
fun for everybody.
My pleasure.
No, I haven't got much to shout out. I would just say maybe if you are interested in any of the stuff that I do, check out my YouTube channel, because I'm starting to get more into, like I said, sort of sharing the education stuff and the behind the scenes and everything there. And I think that's something that I'm going to focus on. So yeah, head over to that, and hopefully there's some other juicy nuggets of insight there to be snacked upon.
Boom. What's the handle? How do they find you?
Just Ant Rubinstein on YouTube.
Cool. Amazing. Well, look, ladies and gents, another wonderful, wonderful episode. I know that you would have got so much out of this. I want to thank Ant. I want to thank you all for listening. And until we meet again, that is a wrap. So that was a chat with the king or queen in the game. I'll give it a shout at the end so you all know the name. It's the Film Gods Podcast. The what? The Film God Podcast.